All right, Mr. Rader, I need to find out more information. So you went to this residence, and what occurred then?
Basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family, and then we went from there.
BTK lived in Wichita, Kansas with his wife and kids. He worked many different jobs, but hiding underneath all of it, a secret life as one of the most calculated serial killers in American history. For 30 years, he got away with it, until a single floppy disk brought everything crashing down. The name BTK refers to what he would do to all of his victims: bind, torture, kill. For over 3 decades, the city of Wichita lived in the shadow of a ghost. A man who killed with disturbing precision, then disappeared only to re-emerge with letters, riddles, and a craving for recognition. But what makes this story truly chilling isn't just what he did, it's how he was caught, and how his ego became his biggest mistake. BTK's real name is Dennis Rader. He was a family man, the president of his local church, a compliance officer, and a Boy Scout leader. Behind his average demeanor was a methodical serial killer who murdered 10 people between 1974 and 1991. He gave himself the nickname BTK and sent cryptic letters to police and media to ensure he wouldn't be forgotten. Rader's crimes started in 1974 with the Otero family. What shocked investigators was the control and calculation of each of his crimes. He often stalked his victims for weeks before taking any actions, learning about their daily routines and when they would be most vulnerable. His letters revealed a man obsessed with power, fantasy, and notoriety. But by 1991, oddly, he went completely silent. For over a decade, BTK vanished. Without new leads, the case went completely cold. Wichita police never closed the file, but with no fresh evidence and outdated technology, BTK became just another cold case. That is, until 2004.
And good evening. We have exclusive details, a new communication that could be from the serial killer BTK.
When we opened it up, we weren't sure what we would find inside, and of course the contents looked very suspicious.
The police were called, and in no time a detective arrived to retrieve the letter to see if it contains the clues needed to track down BTK.
When a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle, a local newspaper in the city. The letter included photos he had taken himself at a crime scene and a photocopy of a driver's license belonging to one of his victims. BTK was back. He wanted attention, not only from the media, but from the Wichita police. What he didn't realize was that police were now playing a new game. A game with digital forensics, DNA, and the patience for him to finally slip up. Over the next year, BTK would taunt police with puzzles and letters he would send to different media outlets throughout Wichita. In one note, though, everything changed. Police finally got the break that they had been hoping for when BTK asked if he could be traced from a floppy disk if he were to try to communicate with them through one.
Can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest. I will try a floppy for a test run sometime in the near future, February or March.
Later in that same letter, he asked police to respond to him via an ad in the local newspaper and to call him Rex. Back in 2004, it wasn't uncommon for people to not understand how technology worked, and specifically, what data of theirs was stored on disks inserted into their computers. Police were willing to bet their killer didn't know this information either. The police took out an ad the next morning in the local paper saying, "Rex, it will be okay."
Some things are deposited upon floppies or thumb drives the moment you put them in a computer. Most people don't realize that, and we were way willing to bet that he didn't realize it.
That was all the encouragement BTK needed. He mailed in a purple Memorex floppy disk to the police in an envelope. On the floppy disk, police found a document labeled Test. There was nothing in the document of note. After digging through this file further, they discovered, hidden in the metadata, two things that cracked the case wide open. The first, a location, Christ Lutheran Church. The second, a single name, Dennis. That gave detectives their first lead in decades. From that moment on, Dennis Rader was no longer just a theory. He was a suspect in one of the biggest cold cases in American history. After finding a name and location on the disk, detectives quickly narrowed it down to Dennis Rader, a middle-aged man living in Park City, Kansas, who fit the profile disturbingly well. But suspicion alone wasn't enough. Investigators needed hard evidence. That's when they turned to DNA. Years earlier, BTK had left a sample of his own DNA at one of the crime scenes, but Dennis Rader had no criminal record, so his DNA wasn't in any database. Instead, police found a creative workaround. They obtained a warrant to access medical records from Rader's daughter, Carrie, who was a student at Kansas State University. Investigators located a pap test she had submitted to the school's health clinic. Using that sample, they conducted a familial DNA test, a comparison between her DNA and the sample left at the scene. It wasn't a direct match, but it was close enough to confirm what detectives already feared. The killer was her father. The morning after they confirmed the familial DNA match, the Wichita Police Department put in motion a plan to arrest Dennis Rader.
So our plan was to line up on a side street, and as soon as we knew that he was coming home, we would set up the arrest. He's been stopped on that curb line. I'm in between these two cars with a 12-gauge shotgun just in case he came out armed. The detectives grabbed him, pulled him the rest of the way out of the truck, and put him face down in the middle of the street.
I immediately pulled my handcuffs out and cuffed him.
He's a big guy. I'm stocky, tall. As we were getting ready to move him, he looked at us and said, "Gentlemen, would somebody please go tell my wife I won't be home for lunch? I assume you know where I live."
Decades of fear finally answered, not by some dramatic chase, but by a floppy disk and digital breadcrumbs left by a man who couldn't resist bragging about his crimes. Dennis Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms. Today, he sits in solitary confinement. His story is a haunting example of duality, a man who blended into society while harboring horrifying secrets. But more than that, it's a story of how ego, technology, and meticulous detective work finally brought a monster to justice.